Let's talk about the last page of Project 2. So you're given a spreadsheet titled Budget Variance, and you can see a budget. It includes budget categories, so what the money is being allotted to, from groceries and utilities all the way down to just dining out and savings and other miscellaneous expenses. Next, you're given the amount budgeted. Then these two columns, actual for April and actual for May, are what was actually spent on each one of these budget categories. The columns that we have to worry about are variance for both months, as well as 2 months variance. So taking a look at April, we have this column, actual for April. So what they're saying is that for groceries, for example, they budgeted $450, but they actually spent $425. So their actual expenditure was under their budget, which means they have a positive variance of $25. This is another way of saying that they saved $25 from that budget category. If you look at utilities, you see that they budgeted $375 and actually spent $380, which means they exceeded their budget by $5, and that's how we end up with a negative variance. So it's a negative $5 variance because we went over by $5. For house payment, this is a fixed expense. So they budgeted $715 and as expected spent $715, which means there was no variance at all. Same thing for house insurance, another fixed expense. So they budgeted $55 and they spent $55, which gave them a 0 variance. So your job is to continue down this list and compare the amount budgeted to the amount actually spent for April. If they came in under budget, you'll have a positive variance. If they went over budget, they'll have a negative variance. And you'll just fill out the column, again, comparing actual for April to amount budgeted will give you your variance. So variance is equal to amount budgeted minus actual for April. Now let's look at actual for May. It works the same way. So this monthly budget doesn't change month to month. Every month they set aside $450 for groceries, every month $375 for utilities, and so on. So when it comes to May and looking at this variance column, we're still going to compare what we actually spent for May to our amount budgeted. Now this is where sometimes students get confused because you may accidentally want to compare actual for May to actual for April, but that doesn't really make sense. Why would I compare my May and April budgets, right? If I want to calculate variance, I need to know, compared to the amount that I budgeted, how much I spent. So for example, let's look at groceries. Once again, my amount budgeted was $450. If I look at what I actually spent for May, I spent $475. Now that means I exceeded the budget. I went over the budget by $25, which gives me a negative $25 variance. For utilities, I budgeted $375 and spent $370. So once again, I came under budget. Which means my variance is positive $5. And again, you would just continue down the line comparing these two columns. If you overspent, you'll get a negative variance, and if you underspent, if you still had money left in the budget, you'll get a positive variance. And that's how you'll fill out this column. So to find variance for this column, you'll take amount budgeted and subtract off actual for May. So next comes a column called 2 months variance. So this is where this person has decided that they want to figure out, on average, what's happening with their variance. So all you have to do to find 2 months variance is take the sum of both variance columns. So if you'll notice here, let's look at groceries again. there was a variance of 25, there was a variance of negative 25. Positive 25 plus negative 25 is 0. For utilities, there was a negative 5 variance and a positive 5 variance, so once again we get 0. For a house payment, there was a 0 and 0 variance, once again we get 0. For house insurance, 0 and 0 is 0, and so on down the list. You can see down here with savings, there was a $0 variance, and then a $20 variance, so 0 plus 20 is 20. And finally with miscellaneous, there was $10.20 variance, followed by negative $7.90. 1020 plus negative 790 is positive 230. So you'll just go down these two columns, adding them together row by row, and putting your answer in that 2 months variance box. Now, once you're done with that, you'll take the total for all 2 months variance. So to take that total, you want to total this entire column. Okay? So make sure you include this $20 and the $2.30. So again, to fill out your first variance column, just compare what you budgeted to what you actually spent in April. If you came over budget, you'll have a negative variance. If you came under budget, you'll have a positive variance. You'll do the same thing to calculate the other variance column, except this time you're comparing the amount budgeted to your actual for May. Once you have both of these variance columns filled in, you'll go row by row and take the sum of both variances to find your 2 month variance. Once you have your entire column of 2 months variances, you'll total the whole thing, and that will give your total for all 2 months variance.